Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining this webinar today, where we talk about operational efficiency with Snowflake for private equity. Thank you to those that are watching this webinar live. Thank you to those that are watching this recording. Thank you to our employees, our customers, our partners. You out there, we thank you. We appreciate the ability to work together, and we look forward to working together for those that we have not had an opportunity to serve yet. This webinar is part of a larger webinar series all around private equity, and private equity specifically related to data and analytics. So this webinar can be viewed in the series, or it can be viewed individually. You do not need to watch these in a particular order or to watch all of them. Pick and choose which ones speak to you as to what information you're looking for. So you think of private equity naturally has a playbook, and that playbook is based upon a number of different factors. There's what portfolio companies we're going to add to our fund or to our thesis. How are we going to integrate those companies from a people, a processy, go-to-market perspective, and naturally data. And over time, growing those portcos into a point where that PE firm exits that portco or exits that fund, because that too is part of their thesis where they've reached a certain level of return that they now need to capitalize on that return and make that return into cash. So that playbook is each PE firm or fund has their own formula. However, they have a formula. It's a written down formula. It's a known formula. With part of that formula should be, and this is where a large opportunity is in regards to data or data and analytics. When you're looking to raise funding to differentiate you from all others, talking about data and analytics, how you use data to integrate systems and applications and processes, how you use data and analytics to make better decisions because you are able to get deeper insights into your customers, into those prospects, so that you're able to grow those portcos and those organizations that are part of your umbrella, which naturally leads to operational excellence. You're using data. Yes, data is not the only thing to help with decision making, but it is a very key cornerstone. It should be a cornerstone to helping you make better decisions. Whether that's looking back and to say, how did we do? Where could we do better? But then to look forward to say, how are we going to do better? And then how are we going to measure that the things that we are doing are working? Whether that's trying to predict the future, trying to look at buyer behaviors in order to identify either a larger audience or to zero in on a particular audience that you're looking to serve. Naturally, as part of your due diligence, understanding from a data perspective, no shortage in a due diligence process is data, a sea of data, lots of numbers, trying to figure out what is this investment worth to you? And then naturally, to you as a buyer and to you as a seller, data is that opportunity. And a lot of times we see with PE firms, they're really unable to get access to that transactional data. That transactional data is the lifeblood to say, are all of the reporting, whether it's in an Excel workbook or some other tool, getting access to that transactional data is key. And whether you're operating a company or you're looking to make a further investment in a company, that transactional data, it is what it is. Those are all the individual grains of sand that represent the transactions and the people and the customers, which understanding and getting access to that transactional data will set you up as that PE firm when it comes to an exit strategy. That'll set you up with a higher multiple, leveraging integrated data and analytics across your portcos to look at not only from a functional perspective, whether that's sales, marketing, finance/operations, but to look across your organization. What is that customer 360, that customer lifetime value? What do customers think of you, really think of you? And when you talk about customer 360 and that customer lifetime value, if you have multiple portfolio companies, well, how are you identifying individuals across different businesses or portcos? I'm Mike Jolland, been in the data and analytics space for a couple of decades, focusing on using analytics to help increase value for PE firms, and especially PE firms that are looking to do exits. Data and analytics is one of those areas that you're able to add 1 to 2x on as a multiplier if done properly. So we look at data analytics. There's naturally some challenges, but challenges also mean opportunity for you and your portcos to do better. Typically, it starts with a lack of access to data. You may have access to some of the data, but not all of the data. The data that you do have access to, well, now you have to go and wrangle that data, try to figure out a way to grab it. Or where am I going to put it once I do get the data? And is the data the right data? How do I know? There might be multiple definitions of key performance indicators throughout your organization. And now you're trying to go from, all right, I've got the data, but now I'm trying to make sense of the data. And people are coming to meetings and reports that say, well, my sales number says we were up 10%. Well, my sales number says we're up 4%. Those are big differences between those. And are you going to spend time in those meetings and conversations debating whose number is right? Or are you going to spend time to say 4% we're below plan, but 10% we're above plan? How do we capitalize and move things forward? Those are very different conversations that you'll be having in that particular example. So your data and analytics, synchronizing on these KPIs and definitions is part of that governance layer that you're able to put in as part of the strategy, which naturally, once you get to governance, you're able to have report consistencies and to get away from these manual processes and trying to combine different data sets into a crazy Excel workbook that 1 or 2 people know within the organization. But to go and update that workbook, it takes many hours and many days in order to do that. So if I don't look at that workbook the day that it gets updated, and I look at it 3, 4, 5, maybe 2 weeks later, well, that data is outdated. And for some organizations, outdated data, that's good enough. Well, we don't want good enough. We don't want you as a PE firm, because we haven't heard of a PE firm that says good enough is their business model. We want to do better. We want to help you do better, just as every PE firm wants to make the companies that are part of their portcos, make those companies better. That is the PE's job at the end of the day. Make them better, increase that enterprise value, and exit and capitalize at a certain multiple, so then that can get redistributed accordingly. So the data centralization, putting that data into a data warehouse. But once the raw data is centralized, that's great. Well, there naturally needs to be some transformation that data goes through. And that transformation is going to be along the lines of, I have data. Think of Mike Jellin in one system, might be Michael Jellin in another system, and it could be Michael Jalen in another system. Well, how do you know if those are 3 different people, 2 different people, or that's the same person? Well, you need to use some data techniques in a data transformation in order to understand who are the individual customers. And the same with product. You may have products that cross multiple portcos, multiple businesses, multiple franchise locations. And how do you align that product? Naming convention, SKUs, hierarchy. Are you maximizing your buying power? You're buying the same product, but are you buying it at lower volumes because you technically are purchasing that through 3 different businesses. At the end of the day, they're portcos that roll up into one overall PE firm. Should you not be taking advantages of scale and a larger buying power? So that will give you a deeper insight into your operations. How can we improve things? Very, very important to use your data once it's centralized, and then you can start transferring that data. So then you can get to a higher data quality. I trust the data. I know these KPIs, consistent, not only naming convention, but consistent definition. There's a governance behind that. And there's a process behind that. It's well documented, it's well understood. And so that I don't have to repeat this entire cycle every month, every week, every quarter, that I need to go and update the data. That strategy, from a data and analytics perspective, that strategy and that automation makes this a process that you can repeat daily, maybe multiple times in a day, depending upon how often your data gets refreshed and what kind of insights you're looking for throughout the day on your operations. So now you start getting into that trend reporting versus fire drills every month. All right, great. Month-end close, got to do this report. Yes, you have to close every month. However, the reporting and the analytics that come out of there should not be the fire drill component. This should just be a natural data feed. So we get into, as part of this solution strategy, is the data cloud. Using that data cloud will allow you to deliver a vision for those brands within your portfolio, because it's going to give you not only a view within an individual portco or an individual brand, but it's going to let you look across your investments. And naturally, when you look across your investments, you're looking at that very high level at the end of the day. But you don't want to have to implement or pay for an IT team if you don't have to. You want to make sure that your costs are in line. Naturally, buying hardware isn't very exciting because you have to plan 3, 4, 5 years down the road for that hardware to be able to expand and grow into it. And similar with software. When you think of using the data cloud, you use what you consume on a given monthly basis, or what you are going to consume in the next 6 to 12 months. Much easier to plan, much lower cost, and it grows and expands as you need it. If for whatever reason you expand much more quickly than you anticipated, awesome. The data cloud can scale with you. At the same time, if you need to shrink because perhaps you've divested some of your portfolio brands or companies for whatever reason, well, you're able to contract that spend very quickly as well, paying for only what you need and really what you use. This is the important part. Pay for what you use. So that way you're reducing the time on the data wrangling, the data gymnastics, and the time spent in meetings trying to debate who is right with their particular KPI. So there's very easy, quick wins that are able to implement in a very short period of time to get you really a customer and operational visibility, all while leveraging the cloud, because you're centralizing your data in the cloud. And you're looking at daily reporting, that summary reporting, that trend reporting that looks in the past of how are things been trending, but then to use that data to forecast or project into the future. So now you're looking ahead, which obviously you can change what's ahead of you. You can only look at what's already happened. You want to make sure that you have as lean a team as possible for your data and analytics. You also want to make sure that you're investing in the right areas with data and analytics. There's some decision making around, well, do I want to spend all this time building various pipelines in order to go against all these different source systems? Or am I just going to leverage a tool that already has these pipelines built for me so that I can centralize the data? Do you want to be in the business of installing, configuring software and hardware? Or you just want to start using that software in the cloud right on day one? There's some obvious answers to these rhetorical questions. These are things that you want to think about from a quick wins perspective, but also sets the foundation and that direction forward for scaling once you get beyond the quick wins. Because we understand that companies are in data chaos. Data is everywhere. Point of sale systems, you might have multiple point of sale systems. Somebody buys something online compared to in the store compared to at a call center or via an operator. Well, you think from an operational perspective, including memberships. All right, that could be a different system. You have ads, your ad buying, social media. All right, those are naturally, some of those are aggregated together, some are not. They're very separate. They don't always talk to each other. You think of all the different employees on the payroll system in HR, in finance, lots of different systems, but then the systems themselves spawn Excel workbooks and other applications that store data. Maybe they store parts of the data. They've added their own secret sauce to the data. There's a lot of data floating around in an ecosystem in your organization. So by the time the data gets to marketing, store, or leadership, who knows what sort of data gymnastics have gone on with that data. And so it's very difficult to get that consistency in governance without a strategy. So how do you go from data chaos into something that is a little bit and dramatically better, more streamlined, which means automatic processes, systematic processes that happen on a scheduled basis, nightly, intraday. You also have governance. That governance defines how are these KPIs calculated? What are things that are included? What are things that are not included? So that by the time this data gets to whether it's marketing, store, leadership, whoever, everyone's looking at the same definition, the same data that's gone through this governed process. So we start by pulling data out from each of these individual sources and landing that data into a cloud data warehouse. That's your single source of truth. And the single source of truth is where you want all of your data to be located. And this single source of truth is going to have the raw transactional data. It's also going to have that transform data as we think about trying to figure out the difference between Michael Jelen, and Michael Jalen. Is that 1, 2, or 3 individuals? And then to present that data in an easy to digest manner, whether you are on a laptop, whether you're on an iPad, or even your phone, to digest that information so that you have that data at your fingertips at any given point in time, but yet you're also able to interact with that data. You can slice and dice. You can drill down into that data. You can annotate that data and send off for questions to say, my finance person, why is this number such? Gives them the opportunity so that everybody can go in and use the same data, look at the similar reports, but then to bit more importantly, once you start looking at ways to improve the business, understand those outliers, you're able to move forward. So remember that integration that we talked about a little bit earlier is very important, where you have that holistic view. But that integration, we've seen plenty of PE organizations gobble up lots of different companies, but then don't always integrate those applications in the level that they should have. And so those applications are not talking to each other. People within the organization aren't able to look across those various applications. So when it comes to an exit, that increases risk because there are silos within an overall portfolio. And those silos don't tend to scale well. Those silos also reduce the multiple that a PE firm will have. So in order to get that higher multiple, make some minor upfront investments. It's going to lead to higher revenue, which naturally gives you that competitive advantage because you have that better understanding of your customer, your operations. And that naturally leads to a 1 to 2x higher exit. So Snowflake. Snowflake is that core component that is your data cloud, that single source of truth as to where you should be landing your data. There are other competitors out there, but from a cost and efficiency and ease of use perspective, Snowflake is a leader in this individual space. Whether that's you're putting your data into Snowflake, you're governing that data, who can access that data, who can't access that data, and for those that can access the data, what can they actually see and do with that data? They don't need to see all of the data if they don't need it for their job. You think of sensitive information around payroll. There's also sensitive information just around company results that perhaps showing an aggregate total number is great. You want everybody to be able to see that. But to start to drill down to a certain level, you might not want to give away, here's how much this one person is making in this one department. Especially if you know the departments are very small. All right, don't let people drill down to that level of information so that they can't see it. PII, HIPAA, naturally some other areas that you want to make sure that data is governed appropriately, which you may not even want your folks that have access to the data on the back end in Snowflake, you may not even want them to see that data. So either don't bring that data over, encrypt that data, or mask that data so nobody can see it if it's not necessary. At the same time, you want all these things, this platform, you want to be able to scale. As you scale your PE fund or portcos. And that scale at times is scaling up. Maybe it's scaling out. You have a busy, you have more seasonal business. So great. At that given time, you want to be able to expand and handle more using the system, more customers. But then when a slower time comes, well, you want to be able to contract and not spend as much because you want a platform that's based upon my consumption on each individual month, not what do I think my consumption is going to be X years down the road, and start paying for that today. So you want something that fits like a t-shirt. This is the size of t-shirt that I like to wear because this t-shirt size fits me. That doesn't mean my t-shirt size is going to fit you either. So you need to pick out what t-shirt size is appropriate for you. So Snowflake handles the ability to pull in and store data from lots of different sources, whether those are on-prem in the cloud applications, they're third-party data sets. Maybe you have some IoT data. You have devices that are kicking out data that you just want to centralize that data. You want to be able to transform that data as well. And then once you have transformed that data, you're able to build out the appropriate data sets that you are sharing through dashboards, perhaps sharing through reports, or sharing with other folks in your organization. Think of data science individuals. Lots of different ways to look at this operational reporting, that real-time analytics, and then ad hoc. Just because somebody is able to look at a report and to say, oh, I understand this product is down 27% from a year-over-year perspective, and I can see who's not buying it. But then to figure out, well, why are people not buying this? Are there things that we're doing wrong? Has the market changed? Has a competitor come in and knocked us off our block on this particular product? Is there perhaps a quality issue? Whatever it is, like you need the ability to talk to and interact with your data as well from an ad hoc perspective. So when you think of centralizing your data from all your different sources, leveraging data lakehouse to put that data into Snowflake, your single source of truth, and to put your analytics and reporting on top of it from there. So getting going with datalakehouse.io is very quick. Connect to your sources, land that data into Snowflake. It could be your Snowflake. You may say, I would like you Data Lakehouse to manage Snowflake. Great, we'll host that for you. And then naturally connect any of your reporting, whether you have Power BI, might have Excel. Especially finance folks, you love your Excel. Excel easily connects to Snowflake so that you can do your analysis where the data looks to be within Excel, but really is within Snowflake at the end of the day. But you can do all of the features and functionality within Excel against that data. Thank you for watching this webinar today, whether it was a recording or live. We appreciate your time. If you have any questions or want to talk about how data and analytics for your organization could be better, questions that you might have, we'd love to be able to talk to you. Feel free to reach out to us on social media or drop us a line, and we'll talk to you then. Thank you again for joining, and we'll talk to you soon.